Welcome to Schneps Media's 3 questions in 3 minutes on politics NY with Skye. We are taking a moment to get to know our mayoral candidates. This interview is one in a series of Schneps Media's Politics NY candidate information sessions sponsored by AARP of New York. New Yorkers 50 plus are the city's most reliable voters, accounting for 3 out of 4 ballots cast in the last open mayoral primary. AARP urges all of the New York City mayoral candidates to remember that 50 plus voters count and to focus on the issues most important to this critical voting bloc. So right now I'm here with Curtis Sliwa. He is one of the Republican mayoral candidates for office. So Curtis was just telling me about today is a very hot day. So he was down in the subways. And Curtis, why don't you tell everyone about being a guardian angel and what that means? Because after all, AARP members rank public safety as their #1 concern for New York City.
Well, I'm AARP, and I remember dreading getting the letters every day when I was 49 telling me, hey, tomorrow you're 50, it's time, it's AARP time. But I want to also thank them because they did a poll of the Republican primary. I was 36 points ahead with those who are 50 plus, who indicate that they're Republicans and will vote in the primary June 22nd. But there's no doubt, even the Democrats have made crime the #1 issue, public safety, quality of life, support for the police. What a dramatic change from last summer when reform the police was issue #1 and crime was like issue #12 in almost every poll. And it's the seniors who feel it the most because they're most vulnerable. They're least able to defend themselves. They're least able to get out of an area when attacks are taking place or emotionally disturbed persons are having psychotic disorders. And they're the most obviously traumatized, sometimes just being exposed to these kind of activities without necessarily themselves being the victims. Mm-hmm. So they are the core of New York City because they've had opportunities to leave before. In the 70s, when 1 million people left New York City because of the deterioration of the quality of life and the crime, and they chose to stay. And now they could easily go to Florida or Georgia or North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Texas, Tennessee. They're all talking to the seniors at night vis-a-vis the computer. And yet they've decided to improve and not to move. And that's why government has to facilitate that. And right now, the mayor, de Blasio, is so totally disconnected with the realities of the streets, the subways, and the parks that it's become a criminal's delight. You can commit crime in New York City, don't have to worry about being arrested. There's a no bail system imposed from upstate in Albany. So the deck is all stacked in favor of the criminals, and they go out as predicate offenders, and they do it again and again and again. And oftentimes it's the seniors who are being targeted as their primary victims.
So then, Curtis, what would you do about that as mayor?
Well, a lot of candidates are coming up with what they would do. It's what I've been doing for 42 years. As the organizer and leader of the Guardian Angels in New York City, but also in now 13 countries and 130 cities around the world. I get local people to volunteer, Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, unarmed. But it's not just see something, say something. We'll do physical interventions. We'll make citizens arrests. Just our physical presence in the red berets and the red sateen jackets deters a lot of crime. And naturally, we get a lot of people into our fold who could just as easily have been the predators. But instead, as guardian angels, they become the protectors. So now you can imagine me as mayor with the ability to be able to re-empower the police to take back the streets, the parks, and the subways. And there's nobody who knows about crime and how to prevent crime better than Curtis Sliwa. There's no candidate who rides the subways. They're only there for a photo op. So I've got my finger on the pulse. I know exactly what to do because they did it all through the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. Rudy Giuliani was elected mayor, and then obviously the city was on a rebound. And I could easily do it again as mayor with all of the weapons available to the mayor to make a difference in the people's qualities of life.
Now, when it comes to housing, that's a concern for seniors too, that they won't be able to afford to retire in New York City. Do you have a plan or a solution or any ideas surrounding that topic?
Well, based on all the policy position papers that I've read, and boy, they're voluminous, especially with the Democrats, nobody's really addressing what happens to a senior citizen when they own a home. They want to turn it over to their children or grandchildren, which has always been a dream. And now they feel like they're forced out because property taxes are rising, especially in the outer boroughs. It's incredible, 6% a year rising. It's no longer affordable. So let's say you earn $75,000 or less, you're 65 or older. I have a position that says you should pay no property taxes because I don't want you to leave the city. When the elderly leave, oftentimes they're not coming back, even to visit the relatives who may remain or family members. It's usually the reverse process. The family moves to Florida, and now all of a sudden the children and the grandchildren want to be with the grandparents, and they begin the trek to Florida. So the way you stem the flow, as I've seen it over the years, is if the grandparents stay in New York City, especially in Staten Island, Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx, where they're paying more property taxes than people who own homes like the mayor does in Park Slope, in Carroll Gardens, in Brooklyn Heights, Prospect Heights. How could that be? You're living in a place like Eltingville in Staten Island, Dyker Heights or Bay Ridge in Brooklyn, Morris Park in the Bronx, let's say Middle Village, Maspeth in Queens, and you're paying more property tax on a 1 or 2 family attached or unattached house there than you are brownstones that fetch millions of dollars in Park Slope. It makes no sense. You got to level the playing field. So my lure is to keep the seniors here. And again, they're the ones who had the opportunity to leave decades before, and they stayed the first time. They were there to fight for what they know is right. And I want them to continue to believe, improve, don't move, but they're going to need an incentive. So they shouldn't have to pay a property tax if they're 65 plus, earn 75,000 or less, and have a private home.
Mm-hmm. Now, Curtis Sliwa, tell us something fun or interesting about yourself that maybe people don't know.
Well, I am an animal lover extraordinaire. I'm also running on an animal welfare line in the general election, first ever in the city with one issue alone. And that is we will have no-kill shelters. The city of New York spends millions of dollars, and people don't know this. They bring an animal to Animal Care and Control, which is a shelter system, and they assume, well, Animal Care and Control will find a new home for my friend, my cat, who's a friend, but I can't take care of her. As a friend, but I don't have the money to feed him anymore. No. If they're not claimed in 72 hours, they're on a death list. Death.
Oops. Shoot. Oops, you faded out and then you came back. Now you're on mute. Hold on a second. Hold on, you're on mute. No, shoot, what happened? I can't hear you. So now, Curtis, tell us something fun or interesting about yourself that maybe people don't know.
How about if I do the trifecta? A, I was stickball commissioner of the city of New York for 20 years. I finished third in the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Championship 1996. And I believe in no-kill shelters. In fact, I'm running on an independent animal welfare line, first ever in the city. So you can vote for me on that in the general election, in which we will no longer kill dogs or cats in the shelters of New York City. We're going to find them a home of their own. And I don't just say it, I do it. I and my wife, Nancy, raised 15 rescue cats in a 320 square foot apartment with 1 turlet. And that's a lot of litter changes, but look, they are our friends. And a society that treats its animals well will eventually treat its emotionally disturbed persons well, its homeless people well. But if you notice, we don't treat either of the 3 well, and that's going to change when I'm mayor.
Okay, well, thank you for spending time with us. Curtis Sliwa, candidate for mayor. Thank you for being part of Schneps Media's 3 questions in 3 minutes on Politics NY with Skye, sponsored by AARP.
Thank you.